Welcome back. We now get started with the first conversation all about the International Day of Peace, a day that is set aside to ensure that we bring the global population together to just mark the far that we have come in regards to peace across the country, and also just bringing this conversation to the Kenyan context, looking at the fact that we have just come from a very intense electioneering period. This is just a very timely day that we get to mark as a part of the international community. And to help us with this conversation this morning, we are joined via Zoom by Sam Kona, who is our commissioner at the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. Good morning, sir, and welcome to the program.
Good morning, and happy to be at Good Morning Kenya show at KBC.
Asante sana. Thank you for joining us this day. Now, before we get further into the conversation, the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, for the benefit of our viewers, just a brief mandate of what the Commission is all about.
The National Cohesion and Integration Commission, NCIC, was established after the aftermath of the 2007-2008 post-election violence. It was one of the commissions that the Kofi Annan mediation process proposed that Kenya should establish an institution of this nature to ensure that some of the structural issues that led to post-election violence are addressed by an institution that is mandated to do this work on a daily basis. So our work is basically to ensure that there is peace in Kenya, there is cohesion, and the people of Kenya do not experience any form of discrimination on the basis of ethnicity, race, or any other consideration that we have in our country. So ours is a broad mandate that also is supposed to breathe life into the national values that are enshrined in our in our constitution, to ensure that people are patriotic, they live a life that inspires confidence, and they take care of each other. So it's a broad mandate, and we've been able to do it for the last almost 10 years now as an institution, and our mandate has grown beyond what was established after the Kofi Annan mediation process, to now dealing with other societal issues like hate speech, and we are also very active in ensuring that all processes in our country, including elections, are peaceful, and the people of Kenya also begin to internalize the concept of peace and cohesion. That's why we also have outreach in schools and many other places.
All right. Now, looking at the importance of this day on a national scale here in Kenya, we're just coming from a time where we had our general elections, and looking at history, elections have always been a very tense, very sensitive, very peace-sensitive time in our country. Why is this day important for each and every Kenyan to participate in marking, given, yes, it is a global day, but looking at the Kenyan context, politically speaking?
I think for this particular year, the theme of the International Day of Peace for this year is End Racism, Build Peace. And as you've rightly put it, Kenya should be the country that should be celebrated at on this particular day, because we had a very difficult year, a highly competitive election, but the people of Kenya overcame all odds and ensured that during the campaigns, they were peaceful. During election time, they were peaceful, and we also experienced tranquility when the results of the elections were announced by the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. So in terms of dedicating this day, I would want to say the people of Kenya are the ones who deserve accolades for ensuring that the campaign period, the election process, the announcement of the results, and also the declaration by the Supreme Court of the President, they still remain calm, they still remain peaceful, and most of the people, and I bet to say there are still individuals across the world who do not believe that Kenya was able to pull through this process, because from the 2007 and 2008 experience, Kenya's elections have always been viewed through the prism of violence, disruption, and so on. But this particular one, being a transitional election, being highly competitive, the people of Kenya rose to the occasion and demonstrated to the world that you can go through a competitive process, you can even disagree with the electoral results, but you still have to maintain peace. And I want to say that is the resilience that demonstrates the people of Kenya are equal to none in the world. And I want to say on this day, of celebrating the International Day of Peace, I want to pay tribute to the people of Kenya and say, this is the way to go. Our democracy has come out of age, and I think going forward, the whole world should be seeing Kenya through the prism of peaceful elections and not what you have always been attributed to.
Fantastic. And, that's really something we need to applaud ourselves as Kenyans for, looking at how far we have come when it comes to maintaining peace in our country, and especially after an election. But now this brings me to looking at this day and time. This particular day requires a 24-hour period where we put down arms and cease fire for at least 24 hours in honor of marking this day. But then again, requires more than just this physical manifestation of putting down arms and ceasing fire, because we're living in a time where social media is also a very active platform, and we are seeing hate speech and hate crime also being perpetrated on the social media platforms. How can we manage such platforms to ensure that also as we mark this day, we are sending the message across all platforms?
I think the 24-hour period is more symbolic, that the world should pause and reflect and say, are we continuing to build a better world for everyone? And if you take what is required of this day to commemorate the fact that we need peace in the world, we need peace in Kenya, but also to amplify the principles of peaceful coexistence, non-violence, and so on. So in declaring a ceasefire, for example, there are so many wars, there are so many conflicts, there are so many disputes happening in the world today. And if you declare a ceasefire of 24 hours, you cannot imagine how many lives you will have saved by just ceasing to engage in violence or in combat for 24 hours. So there is a symbolism in ensuring that we sit back, pause for 24 hours, reflect on the kind of world and country and community we are building, but also to make sure that we reflect on those who have given their lives to contribute to issues of peace. We reward them, we commend them, but also to ensure that the culture of peace becomes really what we require.
Yes.
All disputes and all conflicts in the world cannot be resolved through violence, through armed struggle, and so on. But if we embrace non-violence methods like mediation, alternative dispute resolution, reconciliation, and ensure that even in the worst of cases, we resort to methods that do not lead to loss of life or loss of blood. That is the spirit of this day, to pause and reflect on the need for peace and the need to inculcate a culture of peace across the world, to close all the windows of hostilities that exist for these 24 hours through a ceasefire, but also to amplify the principles that underpin peacemaking and dialogue.
Now, let's talk a bit about the theme of this year, which states end racism and build peace. Now, one would wonder, okay, racism in this day and time is not something that many people have encountered, but it's still a situation that continues to cut through time. What are some of these structures in this day and time that continue to facilitate racism, not just in the Kenyan space or in the African space, but globally speaking, that we need to deal with on this particular day?
Racism is still a global problem across the world, and that is why the United Nations, in its wisdom, decided to dedicate the 2022 International Day of Peace to ending racism and in order to build peace. And I would like to say that across the world, there are so many cases of racist or racial attacks, racial discrimination, and even inequality that is conducted or executed because of where somebody comes from, their race, their descent, their ethnicity, and so forth. So it is still a global problem in terms of contributing to suffering in the world, contributing to inequality, and all manner of discrimination that exists. So that is something that is still ongoing, and our society as humanity, we continue to battle the question of racism across the world. When you come to Kenya, it is very easy to say that we do not have a problem with racism.
Yes.
But I can tell you there are subtle expressions of racial behaviors in our country. They are not open, they are not loud, but if you go across the country, you will see there are subtle expressions of racism. But also in a bigger context, when we use the word racism, especially in the field of conflict resolution and peace building, it also encompasses the question of ethnicity.
Yes.
So in our country, as we commemorate the International Day of Peace today in Eldoret, here in Uasin Gishu County, we will be emphasizing the need for Kenya to embrace our diversity, to go beyond ethnicity and not to discriminate anyone on the basis of their ethnicity, gender, race, or any other form of identity. So we still have a lot to do. And the link between racism and building peace. One of the biggest structural causes of conflict and disputes across the world remain the question of discrimination. And one avenue of discrimination that we experience is through the racism, through ethnicity. That is why if we have to build durable peace, and especially for us as a country, having come out of this election in a peaceful way, our agenda going forward now is to build what we'll call durable peace, sustainable peace, almost permanent peace. And that peace can only be built if we embrace our diversity, eliminate all forms of discrimination, and ensure that there is equality in our society. So it's a very, very important subject for us as a nation and also for the world. And I just want to say, if you go back to the COVID-19 pandemic, you saw expressions of racism from the time COVID-19 started. Different nationalities were treated differently.
Yes.
We saw xenophobic attacks in some of the groups. And when it came to the distribution of the vaccines, there was wild outcry about how that process was being managed, which of course goes to demonstrate that we still have a challenge in terms of the question of racism and how we treat each other in the whole world. So I would like to call upon Kenyans not to take it for granted. And even when you see subtle expressions of racism in our country, it's important that we report them, because those subtle expressions will ultimately grow into the service and maybe create problems between the different races in our country. So it's not something we can ignore. And as a commission, we are completely aware of the dangers caused by those subtle expressions of racism in our country. They are currently underground, but you never know when they will come to the surface. And that's why we must always be watchful when it comes to such expressions.
Absolutely. And I like the fact that you brought in the whole question of ethnic differences, which consequently result to ethnic rivalries as per the Kenyan context, which in one way or the other seem to have a political tie to them, and especially in this time that we are in. Now, looking at the political class, what goodwill do they need to ensure that they are also propagating among the population to ensure that they're also at the forefront when it comes to speaking messages of peace among the country's population?
Ethnicity is usually amplified more during elections. And when you look at, especially this last election and also the previous ones in our country, the main tool for mobilization has always been ethnicity. You will find political elites who will mobilize, organize, sit together, and then start arranging their political campaigns around different ethnic identities. And of course, we know the consequences of that. In the past, it has cost us lives, especially in 2007 and 2008, where we lost more than 1,000 people, and we had over 500,000 people displaced across the country. And we still have people, as we speak, who still have not recovered from that traumatic experience of 2007 and 2008. Some of them are living as IDPs, and others are still across the country seeking for justice and restitution. So what I would like to say is, in this particular election, first of all, I would like to commend the political leaders, particularly the top three: the President, William Ruto, the former Prime Minister, Raila Odinga, and the former President, Uhuru Kenyatta. Because when the results of the elections were announced, we expected, as usual, and the whole world expected Kenya to implode. But the former Prime Minister said he doesn't agree with the results, and he said he was going to proceed to the Supreme Court. And of course, we did not have any violence across the country as we have had in the past. When the results are also challenged in court, the President, William Ruto, accepted that let's proceed to the Supreme Court. He did not call for mass protest and so on. And I want to bring also the question of the former President, Uhuru Kenyatta. He played his role as outgoing president by ensuring that we have a smooth transition.
Yes.
Those are significant actions by our political leaders, and I've just mentioned the top three, but also across the board. We had Governor Nyang'nyongo, for example, in Kisumu, calling upon the residents of Kisumu not to destroy their city because of elections. So we had a good behavior among many politicians in this election, and it is something that we would like them to continue to ensure that they can have competitive elections, competitive politics, competitive campaigns, but they should not lead Kenyans along the route of destruction because of ethnicity or because of the fact that they hold different political persuasions. So that is the message I would like. And as we move forward, as I already mentioned, our democracy has come of age. We now need to take that democracy into our hearts as citizens and ensure that even in the next election and going forward, we will only be seen under the prism of peaceful elections. Yes. We will embrace our identities as ethnicities, but that should not be a reason for us to kill each other, to hate each other, or to destroy whatever we have as a country. So this is the beginning of a process where I believe Kenya will mature into a stable democracy, and we will always be embracing our diversity for the positive that it brings to our country and not the negative. And we encourage political leaders to be part and parcel of this journey as we move forward.
Unity and diversity, quite the message there. Now, these particular celebrations are going to be happening today in Eldoret Town, Uasin Gishu County. Is there a particular reason behind this particular venue for this year's celebrations?
We've always had these celebrations across the country. In fact, 2 years ago, we had it in 5 locations in Kenya. We had it in Nandi, we had it in Narok, Mombasa, Nairobi, and other places. The choice of Eldoret is something that was there before. We had planned that we'll bring this particular event to Uasin Gishu County. Uasin Gishu County is a highly cosmopolitan county with different, almost all ethnic groups exist in this county, and even different races. It is also a county that holds a lot of future for the northern part of Rift Valley. And as you know, North Rift at the moment is not stable in terms of peace. We have ethnic conflicts in Turkana, in West Pokot, in Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, Samburu, and even Laikipia. And being the hub or the headquarters of North Rift, we want to use this opportunity to launch an activity which we are calling as a commission, Ending All Conflict Program. And that project is going to focus on ethnic conflict in the northern part of Kenya, especially Rift Valley, but also extend to other places like Isiolo, Marsabit, Mandera, and Wajir, because having gone through this process of delivering a peaceful election, we believe that if we end all the conflicts that exist in the country, we bring all the groups to engage in dialogue, then that is the time our country can truly experience true peace. So that is the reason why we chose Eldoret to launch that particular initiative and to tell the people of the northern part of the country who are currently suffering because of one form of conflict or the other, that the Commission and the nation is coming to work with you and your leaders to make sure that we bring those protracted conflicts to an end and open a new chapter in the northern part of the country that will be built around development, peace, reconciliation, and so forth. We'll also be using this opportunity here in Eldoret today to reward and commemorate those who have been working hard across the northern part of the country to work for peace, to bring communities together. So we have a couple of them who will be given certificates of recognition today, awards to appreciate their effort, but also to encourage them to continue working for peace and to ensure that communities in the northern part of the country reconcile. So that is the reason why we chose Eldoret as the venue of this important event today, the International Day of Peace, which is aimed at ending racism and building peace. And of course, you also know that this county celebrated a lot during the inauguration of the President William Ruto.
Yes.
So because of giving us our 5th president, I think it is also timely to join in those positive emotions and continue the celebration that started during the inauguration and ensure that Eldoret and Uasin Gishu will be at the leadership, even in contributing to peace and reconciliation across Kenya.
And what are some of the activities that maybe residents of Eldoret Town can expect throughout the day, and your set objectives for these activities, and hopefully the outcomes that you're looking forward to from these particular activities that will be happening?
We have a couple of activities that are lined up. We'll start this morning, immediately after this show. We shall flag off a walk from the city center to the venue of the celebration. We shall also have an opportunity to get dignitaries who will be participating in this event to plant trees that will commemorate this particular day. And then we shall have testimonies during the course of the day of people telling their stories, how they are working to build peace, how the kind of challenges they are facing, but also emphasizing the importance of us ending all or closing all chapters of hostilities amongst ourselves and ensuring that we lay the proper foundation for building durable peace in the country. So as our expectation, we expect that there will be peaceful messages across the board throughout the day, that people will begin to appreciate the importance of embracing ceasefire and also using nonviolent ways of resolving their disputes. And of course, as they go back to their different counties, they will carry the message that we now have a plan to ensure that all the conflicts in the northern part of the country and any other part of the country for that matter will be something that we as a commission and the whole country will be working to make sure that we end it. So it is just amplifying the messages of peace, commemorating the day, ensuring that those who have worked for this particular agenda in the previous years are also awarded and recognized and encouraged to continue to do the work. So that is our expectation, and we hope that all people in Kenya now who are engaged in one form of conflict or the other will respect the request for this day that we declare a ceasefire, we embrace nonviolence, and we amplify the messages for peace and reconciliation across the country.
Now, as we continue to mark this day, much as it is the adult population that will be largely participating in these activities, we cannot go without talking about children when it comes to peace in our country. Looking at the fact that education for the better part of the last 2 years was affected, children are heavily affected. Whenever we have any instability where peace is involved in our country, children consequently feel the ripple effect of decisions that we make as adults. How are you also tailoring this message of peace in a way that children understand that they are the future of maintaining this calm and peace that we are experiencing in our country at this time?
We will have some children participating in the commemoration of this day, but just to respond to your question, we have a program called Peace Clubs, where we take messages of peace into clubs in high schools and also primary schools. And the reason why we have this program, which is an ongoing program that has been undertaken by the Commission over the last 10 years, the reason why we have it is because ultimately for us to have a peaceful country, for us to have durable peace, we must all embrace the values of peace and also inculcate in all generations, and especially the young one, and starting with children, we inculcate the values of peace. We ensure that we inculcate a culture of peace and also the culture of nonviolence. If we start this process, as we are doing with the children, as they go to high school, as they discuss about how they disagree in school, if they embrace nonviolent ways of dealing with their disputes in school, if they use the mechanisms that are established in school, that culture will grow with them. And as even they grow up to become big older people, as they get positions in society and in leadership, they will always be, their normal or their default mode will be to embrace nonviolent methods of dealing with dispute, and also to embrace the values of peace, tolerance, and nonviolence. So you are very right. This particular campaign of building a culture of peace in Kenya has to be integrated within the children, within the young youth population, and also among the adult generation. And last year, as we were working under the Election Bill and Norma Roadmap, as a commission, we had a very important event in Nairobi where we brought different young people from all the counties in Kenya, and also Council of Elders. And they were engaged in what we are calling intergenerational dialogue to advance peace and reconciliation in Kenya. And in that particular meeting, you could tell that both generations are required in order for us to build a culture of peace. You have the older generations who will give us our culture, the riches of our culture in terms of dispute resolution, but you also have the younger generation who have been equipped with modern skills of mediation, negotiation, and reconciliation. And that mix, that intercultural, intergenerational mix, is what we require as a pillar for building durable peace across the country. So it is something that will touch all generations, starting with children, women, young people, and also older people. Once we all embrace that, then we will have the ingredients for what we call durable peace.
All right. Now, as we close this conversation, you could give us just very briefly your closing remarks in regards to your call to action message to the larger population of Kenya, those that will not be there in Eldoret to mark the celebrations with you, but how they can also participate in this day. Very briefly.
I think the message for Kenya is just as we've come out of a very difficult election peacefully, we must now guard jealously that peace. And it will not only be, we are active only during elections to work about peace, to talk about peace. Peace is something that has to be a daily endeavor. It is something that you do on a daily basis as you wake up, as you relate with your colleagues, as you relate with your family, and so on. So I want us now to say, as a country, never again shall we take peace for granted. Never again shall we kill each other on the basis of ethnicity because of politics, and that Kenya will always be a leader in peace and will always be leading in ensuring that all processes in our country follow the rule of law, and where there is a dispute, we follow the mechanism that is established by our institutions.
All right. Thank you so much for making time to be with us this morning. We have been speaking with Sam Kona. He is a commissioner at the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, and he is also a conflict resolution, governance, and stability expert. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, and have a happy International Day of Peace.
Happy International Day to you.
Build peace.
All right.
Thank you.
Asante Sana. Again, the theme for this year's International Day of Peace is End Racism, Build Peace. This is a day that will be marked in Eldoret Town, Uasin Gishu County today, but we are all called to mark this day. It is a day that is celebrated globally on the 21st of September, a day where the United Nations calls all countries together for a 24-hour period. Ceasefire, put your arms down, no violence whatsoever. So we do hope you participate in this day in any shape, manner, way, or form that you are able to. That brings us to a close of this conversation, but do stay with us. We have so much more lined up for you. We'll take a very quick breather. We will be right back.